Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Access All Agents, your opportunity for a backstage pass to the real estate industry. You'll get to know exactly what's happening and where it's happening. And joining me right now, two very good friends of mine. First of all, we've got Tom Haig. Say good day, Tom.
Great to be with you as always, Rosie. Thank you.
My colleague in Capital Property Newcastle and gun agent Anthony Birt from Global Property. Say hello there.
Afternoon, gentlemen.
Hello. So, mate, what a difference a week has made. We've seen on-site auctions allowed to happen again. We've also seen open for inspections back on site. Tell us about what you've been seeing in your neck of the woods, Anthony.
Yeah, well, definitely it feels like the sun has risen once again. There's the open house has definitely given a bit of an injection of confidence into the market. Agents are more excited, which is always a good sign, but buyers and sellers all probably seem like there's just more confidence and excitement in the market. Our experience over the last sort of 6 weeks has been that the buyers have been there the whole time, but there's just been a lack of stock, and it's mostly the sellers that seem to have the crisis of confidence with whether it was the right time to come on the market. But now it seems like everyone's in the same boat, which is that it's all guns blazing.
There's been some hardcore buyers sitting on the sidelines, and what I mean by hardcore buyers, I mean those people who've already sold their homes, they got cash in their pocket, they're just sort of waiting for, when they think time is right. Do you think that they've probably missed what we would call the bottom of the market and things are sort of slowly starting to head north? What do you think about that, Anthony?
Yeah, there was, I think, a very brief window where some sellers panicked and we saw a couple of sales happen that were a lot less than we expected, and you wondered if that was sort of a sign of things to come. And I think there was a little bit of overconfidence from buyers in terms of where prices were going to go. And that, I think that was true for a week or two, but the motivation for buyers didn't really change. Obviously, some people might have had to exit the market because of COVID, but like you said, people who have sold, that have deadlines to move, people who have changes to their family circumstances, all the reasons for wanting to buy was still there, and so the buyers were still there. And I think as soon as people realised that the sky wasn't falling in, they're probably, those opportunities to pick up bargains, they haven't really eventuated, and hence why the market probably is a bit more confident now and just getting back to a bit of a normal feel. I mean, obviously the medium-term direction of prices is another matter, but at the moment it's just steady as she goes.
Yeah, it's interesting just how agile you need to be. Tom Haig, what's your views on needing to be agile in a market that just is sort of all over the shop like it is right now?
Look, it's so crucial, Craig, and I think from an investor standpoint, that's ultimately the key, regardless of what the market conditions are doing. You need to be prepared, and you need to be ready to jump on a great deal when you see one, and undoubtedly there will be some great deals over the next sort of 6 months or so. I think Anthony certainly made a great point in terms of, I guess, the transactions that have been happening over the last month or maybe 2 months particularly, where it's been the necessity to sell and people have naturally, I guess, been a little bit concerned about where the market's heading and may have accepted a little bit less. But we've probably also seen on both sides of the fence, from the investors and the buyers and also the vendors, probably lower levels of transactions than we might have ordinarily seen at this time of year. So I think really the interesting thing for us is going to be in coming months when those buyers those vendors who have perhaps held back on selling a property now go and put that property to market with a bit more confidence to see really what transpires. But again, the number one thing from an investor's point of view is to be ready to go, because if you're not ready, if you're not prepared, and if your offers to purchase are laid with a list of conditions 7 dot points long, then you're not going to go too well, regardless of the market conditions. So it's a great point you make, Craig.
Yeah, people want certainty right now, and that also means that sellers want to have the certainty of knowing that they've got a buyer locked in. So for those buyers to be able to negotiate the best deal, they do need to be agile. Banks are taking doubly long to get things done because people are working from home and they're sort of negotiating the waters themselves. Anthony, do you think that we're going to see a winter like we've never seen before as far as the number of transactions taking place?
Yeah, I think look, that's a good question. That seems to be the word on the street is that the winter is going to be the new spring. And I think that looking at just our activity in the last 2 weeks, there's probably people who we were expecting to have on the market a month ago who are now diving in now that they've realised that, things will be okay in the end. And so I think there's going to be, because the transaction numbers have been so low and the stock on market has been down 30 or 40%, my expectation is that those people are going to dive back in, and we're probably going to see that spring rush that you tend to get is going to be the winter or, the post-COVID rush instead.
Yeah, that's what I'm feeling too, Anthony. And a lot of things making that happen. The fact that there's been, I guess, what we call almost a little bit of a suspension, almost a hibernation for about a month of the property market. People sort of sitting on the sidelines, not exactly sure what to do. But it felt to me like probably towards the middle of last week, with all the announcements that the government's made as far as opening up, accessibility, like we mentioned, the open for inspections on site, the auctions on site, that there's just like so much more positive sort of attitude to buying, and this winter there'll be a lot of agents who traditionally go skiing or whatever they might do in their holiday break, go off to Europe. They're not doing that because you can't, A, and B, they need to make up for lost ground. So I think there's going to be a lot of activity happening throughout the winter into spring. What's your thoughts on that, Tom Haig?
Funnily enough, Craig, it was only a fortnight ago. I think we obviously both love to get in the water to go for a surf, and I remember you remarking to me that you couldn't believe how many people were dusting off old boards and getting out there midweek at lunchtime to go for a surf. So it almost seems like everybody, as you mentioned, has gone into hibernation over the last 6 or 8 weeks, and Anthony mentioned the sun's coming up again, and everybody is starting to come back out of their shell, which is a great thing. Obviously, the changes to restrictions on social activity, particularly, and obviously the way that businesses can now operate are having a huge impact on that. So, look, I think the relaxation of some of those restrictions and the ability for people to be more mobile, to get out and about, and for people to start their business again, we're in for a busy period, which is really good for everyone.
So, Anthony, tell us a little bit about what market you work in and where some of the opportunities may be for those listeners out there who are looking to buy.
So I work in our Warners Bay office, so most of the business that I do tends to be sort of along that east side of Lake Macquarie. But where we're positioned, we tend to do a little bit of stuff heading into Newcastle as well. So obviously in this day and age, your office location is sort of less critical. So it's sort of all over that Newcastle and East Lake Macquarie area. In terms of opportunities, I guess the issue that has existed so far has just been the lack of stock, and good properties still selling in market. But from a buyer's perspective, I think the next sort of 3 months and 6 months, there's going to be more to choose from, and I think that prices, because obviously the economy isn't going to be all that crash hot, there's going to be probably some opportunities for good value purchases. But I guess even in the worst of the COVID over the last 6 weeks, there's been pockets which have still been selling really well, and they're typically your high growth sort of all the areas that get lots of people through the open homes. So in my areas, you find that tends to be like around the Warners Bay area, nice lakeside suburbs, in towards town. Look at places like Mayfield, Adamstown, suburbs where there's lots of turnover and traffic and high demand. Those are the ones that were still selling really well. We had a lot, and even even the week that everything got shut down because of COVID and everyone was panicking, I still had there was a house in Waters Bay that we had that had 3 people fighting for it, going to a contract race because it was in the high 5s, which is basically the bottom of the market in the area. And so if you can buy in high value, high growth suburbs, but you buy at the bottom end of those suburbs, they've really got opportunities for growth in the long term. But like Tom was saying before, you have to be ready to jump on them because they're also the ones that people are competing for the most. But if you can get something in a good area at the low end, you can't lose.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think for a while there, a lot of buyers are thinking that prices are going to be 50% off, and we never got to that point. And they might have come off, I think, a max of 10%, But even so, 10% is still a pretty good deal compared to no discount. So it's probably time to sort of start thinking 50% is just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. There's too many underlying fundamentals, particularly with the banks giving, some time out there on the mortgage repayments. We've got JobKeeper, we've got Job Seeker. So there's enough sort of stimulus there to support the housing industry. But, now's not time to be greedy. If you're waiting around for the bloodbath, that bloodbath's not going to happen. What's your views on that one, Tom Haig?
Yeah, look, it's a great point, Craig, and I guess the opportunities up ahead, as Anthony rightly said, are all down to the supply and demand factors that we've always been influenced by from the point of view of property price growth and/or property price discounting. And one thing that's probably come out in the last few weeks, and we're obviously having conversations with agents like Anthony every day, and keeping our ears low to the ground out there. And one of the things that's sort of come up has been in that state of panic, particularly when the initial onset of COVID was coming through, there were quite a number of purchasers who rescinded contracts. So effectively pulled out of purchasing properties. So those are the sorts of opportunities where if you're keeping in close contact with agents, you're able to be informed of something that might have already sold and that sale has fallen over. So you effectively get another throw at the stumps, as we like to say. So things like that, just being connected, and naturally for those opportunistic investors, being ready when the opportunities present themselves. I guess everybody would love to have that crystal ball as to when the bottom of the market will be or what that sort of discount might look like. But Anthony makes a great point in that regardless of the market conditions, you buy in great locations that are highly desirable, well connected to local infrastructure, have got great access to local employment. You really can't go wrong longer term. So I think a lot of that fear is driven by the immediate or near term. When you think about, successful property investment, it really comes down to investing for the longer term. So I guess the investor we work with is always buy and hold for the longer term. The favourite period of time to hold a property is forever, of course. And if you approach it with that mindset, then you're going to be very selective. You're going to be careful about where you invest and the locations that you invest in. And I guess the suburbs that Anthony mentioned, the emerging suburbs, Mayfield, Adamstown, and those are suburbs that are starting to achieve some really great prices at the upper end, but have still got the affordable pockets that allow investors to get into those markets and do so in a way that they're really going to set themselves up for a really pretty picture in 7 to 15 years' time.
Tom, that's a fantastic wrap up there. Key takeaways, we call that. And I think Anthony's shone a lot of light on that because it's like the underlying fundamentals are always the same no matter what market you're in. Buy good quality homes, places that the families like to be in, things that can be easily rented out. And you're not going to get for 50% off, but you may be able to get 10% off if you act quickly. Would you think so, Anthony?
Yeah, I think that what Tom said is exactly right about the fact that real estate is a long-term investment. So, I mean, those fundamentals that we're talking about are the things that are going to give you the significant growth down the track when you do finally cash in and realise that investment. So, I mean, even if you buy a property next week and it's worth 10 or 20% less, that's probably an extreme example, in 6 months' time, it doesn't actually matter if you're not going to sell it. So, with real estate, I think it's different to other investments because every house is unique and every area is unique. And so you just want to take the time to buy the right thing. And if you don't want to pay too much and you want to get good value. But if you're making a financial decision that's going to be 5, 10, 15 years as an investment, then it's probably more important to get the right property in the right location at a fair price than worrying about the 5 or 10% plus or minus, because the prices are going to go up and down. But that's not where the value from the investment is going to come. It's going to be from getting the right thing and looking back in 10 years' time and saying, oh, I'm so glad we bought that when we did.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Anthony. I think that's a really good, analysis, and something we can probably finish up on because it was such a strong point. So, Anthony, if I want to buy, if I want to sell with you, how do I get in contact?
So you can find me, Google, Facebook. My number's on the screen just there, or shoot me an email, anthony@globalproperty.net.au. But, I'm a real estate agent, so I'm not hard to find.
And Tom Haig, how do we get in contact with you?
Yeah, best way to get in touch, you can contact me directly. So I'm just tom@capitalpropertynewcastle.com.au, and obviously reach out via the website, same details. We're on Facebook and Instagram as well.
Well, guys, thanks so much for joining us on Access All Agents, your backstage pass to the property industry. And I'll tell you what, we've found out a lot of good things today. So I can't wait to get out there this weekend and meet some more people and show them some great real estate. Bye for now.
Thanks, Rosie.